Hello and welcome back once again to the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. This is episode 87. Jon and Wendy talk to Mike Spinale. I'm your host, Jon.
And I'm Wendy. How's it going tonight, Jon?
Wendy, I'm still recovering. Before we get started, I have to make sure we tell everybody that this episode's being brought to you by our friends at CareerArc. And we just got back over the weekend from EMBARC.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I'm still recovering. I don't know if it was the time change or what, but I've just been exhausted since getting back. I don't know about you, but
I had an extra night there to enjoy myself and I guess kind of decompress before I flew home. And of course, for me, that was literally an all-day affair getting back to the other side of the country. So I feel pretty good. I have to say, I was so energized after that conference for a first-time event. We did a Facebook Live about it. Yep. We talked about it. I can't think of a better way to start a conference or to have something like that. Right. They did just an amazing job. The speakers were great. Mm-hmm. We got to meet Paul Lieberstein, which was quite the coup. He was very nice, and that was cool. I met a lot of people. Obviously, met the CareerArc staff who I had not met, who I've been working with for several years now, and that was fantastic. But met a lot of other practitioners, met a lot of recruiting folks that got me really excited about some of the stuff that's going on in talent acquisition these days and how they're using tech that I'd never even heard of, or that people use Venmo recruiting. Like, whoa, I may not apply it in my day-to-day, but I have a real appreciation for what's going on. And there were some really, really interesting conversations happening.
Some of the creativity was... I know what session you're talking about. You know, the borderline is this stalkerish to find someone on Amazon and order them something on their wish list or that sort of thing. It was interesting because somebody had asked a little bit about putting that to scale, and I don't think they really addressed that because, you know, when you're someone like me and you have hundreds and hundreds of job openings and hundreds of applicants, we're not going to be stalking anyone and sending them 2 cents on Venmo, which that is clever, though. Sending someone your 2 cents,
It was really interesting. Like I said, not being in that world much anymore, I certainly learned a lot there. It was also really interesting. Big component of CareerArc's offering is the outplacement service. We've had Caroline Vernon on the show. You know, shameless plug. This coming Sunday is going to be our monthly chat. Caroline's going to be taking part with us in that conversation about outplacement. And there were some really great sessions about being compassionate and how do you handle those situations with as much grace as you can. And I think everyone in there can agree that it is something that sometimes we're not so good in handling. And I think part of that comes from just not necessarily prepping. Right. And are we training people as well? And let's face it is an unfun thing. And when they had people stand up and say or raise their hand, how many separation conversations have you been in? And somebody raised their hand for over 100. Wow, it's tough. It's just, I think it'll be great to continue that conversation Sunday night with everybody, and certainly we'll encourage everyone listening to take part there. But again, phenomenal time with you getting to walk the Hollywood stars and go to the Chinese theater was cool. And the lady in the bubble walking on the pool was cool. It was amazing, top to bottom.
CareerArc did a fantastic job, and I'm really hoping that we can find time with Robin to get him on, their CEO. He was very fantastic, very involved with the whole conference, which I thought was just phenomenal, and not just as the guy who would stand up and say, "Hey, welcome to my show," or whatever, but welcome to the event. Here's what we hope will happen, and then walk away. He was in sessions. He was asking questions. He was a huge participant. I would encourage you all to go out and check out Robin D. Richards on Twitter. He is out there, and connect with him. I think he would. I'm going to assume he would love to be connected with a lot of folks out there, and hope we can get him on the podcast soon.
Well, we're looking forward to that, and CareerArc's going to be sharing a lot of the content that was developed at the event, which we'll certainly be sharing as well. And again, as a first timer to LA, I don't think I could have done it much better.
That was good.
Having some connections out there, I got to see friends not associated in HR, not associated with the conference. That was great. I saw a 2.5-hour comedy show at the Comedy Store, which was literally a pilgrimage for me. I had to make. So again, the conference was great, but even the outside events and again, walking over to the Chinese theater with you and seeing
That
the
was
footprints
awesome.
and that was really fun too.
That was pretty cool.
Enough EMBARC talk. We've done it once again. I'm really excited about tonight's guest.
Yep.
Feels like we've known this gentleman for a while now, and glad we could finally get him on the show. John, I'll let you make the introduction. We will get started.
Yes, I'm excited to be chatting with Mike Spinale. I got to meet Mike a few years ago at National SHRM Conference, enjoyed some mimosas for brunch, and now we get to talk with you and get a little bit deeper. Mike is an HR guy from Boston, an HR leader in the tech industry. He is currently the Director of People Operations at AppNeta, a global software as a service that gives enterprise businesses end-to-end visibility into network performance from the end user point of view. He serves as a state director for the Massachusetts State Council of SHRM and is adjunct faculty at Southern New Hampshire University. Mike earned his BS in business with a concentration in HR from SNU and his MBA from Babson. He lives in Boston area with his husband Oscar, their French bulldog Mia, and their cats Claudio and Diego. Mike, welcome to the show tonight. Our first question, what is in your glass?
Hi, guys. Well, when you're from Boston, you have to have a craft beer in your glass, and I'm drinking a Trillium Big Bird Double IPA. It's absolutely one of my favorites.
That sounds yummy.
And you said it's Big Bird?
Big Bird.
Big Bird.
Is it yellow?
Yep.
I was going to say, any allusions to Sesame Street there?
The beer itself is very yellow and cloudy, so you could say it kind of looks like Big Bird's feathers.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Love
excellent.
it.
Mike, certainly know what you're doing now. And how exactly did you get your start in HR?
I think like most people that you guys talk to, didn't really plan on it. I started going to college right out of high school and was studying French and Spanish, and I was going to be a teacher. I think you were going to be a teacher too, John, if I remember correctly hearing in the past. It didn't quite work out my first semester. I just don't think I was really ready, mature enough for what college really was. And so I went to work. And when I started going back to school at night, there were no foreign language majors in where I was living. So I switched to history and thought I was going to be a history teacher. And then after one semester of that, I said, this is going to be the same thing pretty much every year for the rest of my life. And I don't think I want to do that. So I switched majors again to computer science. And when I got to my programming classes, I'm pretty sure I cried a few times during those classes. And so I said, let me just get a business degree and get this college thing out of the way. I got to my HR management class, which is actually the class I teach at Southern New Hampshire University. It just kind of struck me like, here's a field where I can combine the things about me that really drove me to wanting to be a teacher. And I can use it in a more progressive field that would be more dynamic and more lucrative as well. When I was going to school, I started working. I had been working in the college bookstore, and I had got promoted to manage a store of my own at a small college. And so I really enjoyed the management piece, and I started teaching computer science classes, like, basic things like how to use Windows, basic PCs, Microsoft Word, Excel. And I was working with folks who were either recent immigrants or elderly who really didn't have any computer skills. That was my first foray into workforce development. Then I got a job after I left the bookstore industry in a homeless women's organization, developing employment training programs and doing career coaching and resume critiques and interview preparation and job development. And I really, really enjoyed that side of the business world, employment, and helping people get jobs that could help provide for their family. While I was doing that, I ended up moving back down to Boston. I was living in New Hampshire at the time and worked at another organization that did similar stuff. And then I just said, it's time for me to go corporate and get into HR, which is what I was going to school for. I had finished my degree at that point. I got a job as a recruiter in an environmental company. And that was really my first step into an HR career.
I love how it took you several tries in college to figure out, because I think it's good to hear those stories and help people understand that you don't have to decide and be right when you start college. It's okay to take a break, and it's okay to say, this isn't right, I need to find something else. Mike, recently, as I was stalking your Twitter profile, you shared an article by your CEO on managing teams that are across the country, and some that work in an office and some that work remote. So as we're seeing more and more people do HR across time zones, where some people are in the office and some people aren't, what HR challenges have you come across, and how can we help drive engagement with teams that are not in the same room?
That's such a good question. And honestly, I've been in tech for a number of years now, and everywhere I've worked, especially in the tech industry, you've got the right technology, you've got the right tools and equipment. It's so easy to work from home and to work from wherever you want to. And, a lot of these companies have been smaller companies where you've got someone who's a really critical team member, and then they want to follow their dreams and move to Denver or San Francisco or wherever it might be. It's an opportunity to retain a talented employee and at the same time earn goodwill for supporting their endeavor. And who knows, maybe they'll come back to the office someday, maybe they never will. In today's day and age, it's a lot easier to have this type of workforce. And so at AppNeta, we have our headquarters is in Boston. We have our development team members, our software, our QA are in Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. And then we have a handful of remote employees. And so, key is being inclusive, I think is really first and foremost, is making sure that you don't forget about these people when you have a new swag initiative in the office and everybody's getting t-shirts, that you mail t-shirts home to those folks who are working from their homes. You need to have the right equipment and tools and technology, and you need to be willing to invest in solid communication tools like meeting software. We use Zoom at AppNeta, and it's a great tool. Slack for instant messaging, and Slack's a great tool because you can instant message. You could do pulse surveys through it if you wanted to. You can easily call someone and do either a phone call or a video call. You have options. You can share your screen. So you have to have those tools, and you really have to invest in that for folks. And I think the other big thing you can do is make sure you're giving these folks face time with the organizations. One of the things that we do at AppNeta, we have company meetings every month, and we always talk about a sales win. And a lot of our sales engineers actually work remotely. And so giving them the opportunity to present that sales win, and they've got to go on video and display themselves on camera, but that lets everybody in the company see them, hear their success, hear their win, and make them feel a part of it. So you just can't forget about them. You really need to make sure that you're always looking for ways to make sure your remote employees are tethered to the organization.
Mike, you mentioned pursuing education originally, and yes, I did actually spend some time in the classroom before I jumped into this wonderful human resources world. So you are working with SHNU, and talk a little about, I guess I know now, having heard your story, kind of how you got into the teaching piece, but what do you enjoy about working with those students, and what are you seeing from them? What surprises you when they're pursuing HR as a profession now? Has their motivators changed, or what are you seeing with the student base that you have?
Well, I guess the first thing that I feel is interesting about this is I feel like there are a lot more students who are deliberately pursuing the field of HR. And I primarily teach in the online program. And the online program at SNHU is amazing. It's such a great program that is, a nonprofit university whose mission is to help people obtain their educational dreams. The online platform really provides a lot of flexibility, and you get a real mix of students. So, I'm not dealing with a classroom of 18, 19-year-olds who just came out of high school. I'm dealing with a classroom of, some folks who are like that, and some folks who are grandparents who, put their life dreams on hold for their families and are going back to school. So I feel like, the students that I'm working with, they have different ideas about what HR really is. And what I love about the class that I teach is that I get to tell them what I think HR really is, and bring in the modern perspective outside the textbook. I talk about you guys actually in my class every week. I share HR resources, and those posts that I share is about podcasts and how much HR has adopted that as a tool for sharing information within our community. And I really encourage folks to get out on Twitter and participate in the former Next chats, I guess. Other chats like yours, exactly. That's what I really like about doing it is it was this very class that I took at SNHU, and I went on campus. I did not go online. It was taught by the director of HR for Southern New Hampshire University, and it was just such an eye-opening experience for me and really inspired me into the field. And so I try to give back that way. That's why, as soon as I got my master's, I was eligible to teach, and I, one of the first things I did was go to SNHU and go through their application process to be an adjunct faculty member there. And that's why I do it. I just like giving back to the field, and it's amazing how I think popular the field is becoming as people, over the years. I mean, back when I was in school, HR wasn't even a major. It was a concentration, and you just had to take like 3 or 4 HR related classes, and that was your concentration. And now they have a full-on major. They have a full-on graduate school major. And so there's just a lot of interest in the field, which I think is great.
Mike, you have been very active as a SHRM volunteer for quite some time, and were a member of the blog squad for the first time this year. So, and like I mentioned earlier, you and I got to connect for the first time at SHRM, I believe in DC is where we connected for the first time. Brunch with John Friend. Any other fun conference memories that you want to share?
Well, I have a billion of them. How much time do we have on this show? SHRM has been just the number one driver for my personal and professional development over my entire HR career. And it's why I volunteer, is because I feel like I've gotten so much out of my membership with SHRM, out of my engagement with my local chapter, which is NERA, giving them a shout out, the Northeast HR Association in the Boston area. Being a part of these organizations over the years has done so much for me professionally, but also personally. And, I listen to your show, so I know how people talk about this, and I feel the same. We've all been able to build so many strong, not just professional networking relationships, but real deep friendships out of the connections that we've made over the years. And I've been going to SHRM. I think my first SHRM was 2006 or 7. It was New Orleans, so whichever year that was. And I went by myself, and I didn't know anybody, and so many people, and so overwhelming. And I left with every last bit of swag that I could find in the expo hall. And now I don't collect any swag, by the way. It's after going for so many years that you learn that. If I had to pick one moment, I guess I have 2, if I could mention 2. One is the first SHRM Tweetup that I went to, and that was in San Diego, and I think that might have been 2010 when it was in San Diego last. And it was the second SHRM Tweetup. The first, I think, was in New Orleans the year before, but I hadn't really been active on Twitter enough to have been connected to that community. But by San Diego, I was, and I went to that Tweetup, and it was sold out, and I think it was like 150 people. That's all the Tweetup could accommodate, and you're meeting these folks who, all the big names that today that you'd been following online and chatting with and sharing stories with and reading their blogs, and to be there and to be like, oh, Mike Spinale, I know your name, and to connect with people that you've just been engaging with online, offline, was really the seeds of some amazing relationships that I have still today. And people, I'm well connected to a core group of people that, kind of go back to those days. And I call these folks my mentors. I mean, they're just, anytime you have an HR problem or a non-HR problem, or you just need a laugh, or you just want to vent, or whatever it might be, you have these people that, are across the country that you just love. And it goes back to that Tweetup back in San Diego. And similarly in Chicago, and I think this was 2013, I made one of my strongest friendships, SHRM friendships with Tiffany Keel. We ended up outside of a party that was in the West Randolph area of Chicago, which was still in transition. It was kind of all warehouses that had turned into lofts and art galleries and that kind of stuff. And we had got there to go to this party, and we couldn't get in, and we weren't allowed in. It ended up being an exclusive like Sherm blogger party or whatever. And so we were like sitting there outside, kind of like, well, what the heck? I'm Mike, you're Tiffany, like, let's go get a beer. And, and we just made the night our own. Who knows if Tiffany and I would have connected that way had we both got into that party. So everything happens for a reason, and I was miffed in the moment, but yeah, definitely walked away with a better prize that evening.
And if you're going to hang out with anybody, Tiffany's one that she's up for it.
Yeah, we go way back to then, and we've had a lot of wonderful times together. When did we meet, John? I feel like it was an SHRM event, wasn't it?
No, it was
Illinois
DC.
SHRM?
It was DC 2016.
Was it DC?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was the year Jon and I met.
Yep.
So the same year as Wendy then.
Same year
It
as Wendy.
all comes from there.
That's when I met.
Yes.
That's when I met Wendy. That's right.
So much magic that year. Oh my, wow. See? It's the seeds that get planted at the SHRM conference.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. This episode of the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast is being brought to you once again by our friends at CareerArc. Well beyond the social media recruiting space, CareerArc has a tremendous outplacement program and offering for organizations that are looking to make those reductions or any reason that an employee is leaving as positive as possible. Wendy and I are really excited that Caroline Vernon, a previous podcast guest, will be co-hosting our monthly Twitter chat on Sunday, October 27th, where we talk more about outplacement and how to do it in the best way possible. If you want to learn more about CareerArc's offerings in the outplacement world, check out careerarc.com/outplacement. Again, that's careerarc.com/outplacement. Thanks as always, CareerArc, for helping us out with the podcast. Now back to the show.
And we are back. Mike, it is now time for everyone's favorite part of our show, the half-hour question connection. So our first question is, who was your first professional mentor, and what was the most important or impactful thing you learned from them?
I don't know if I feel weird about this, but I feel like I don't have one single person that I would point to as a professional mentor. I don't know. I got started in, I think about HR. I got started in HR as a recruiter. I had an HR manager, and she was great to work with. And, in some ways, there was definitely mentorship there, and she taught me a lot. And then she moved on after a year and a half, and I ended up getting promoted into her job after some advocacy and some, kind of appointing myself as the interim HR manager. And I only had a year and a half in the company, and it was all in recruiting. I learned a lot from her, and it was a great opportunity to show what I was made of and get promoted. And since then, I haven't worked for folks who have been in HR. I've been the head of HR. And so, most of my mentors have been here and there, picking up things from, the COO or the CEO I worked with, or, one moment that sticks out in my mind is when I first got promoted into management, someone who was an SVP in the sales area gave me a copy of The First 90 Days, which is a great book by Harvard Business Press that really helps you set a plan for your first 90 days in a new job. And it was a great gift, and it's a gift that's kept on giving, because I've read that book every time I've switched jobs or got promoted and started something new, to remind myself of, what I should do in those first 90 days to set myself up for success. That's probably one of the most meaningful moments. No one individual sticks out. I feel like when I have a need for mentorship, for someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to give me some coaching, I find whoever kind of fits right in the moment.
Mike, who's one person you've gained in your network in the last year that you think more people should know?
I would have to say there's been a lot of people I've connected to in the last year, and being a part of the Sherm blog this year was kind of an interesting exercise, because I've been going to Sherm for so long, and there's really been kind of a changing of the guard in the Sherm blog. And so it's, there's a lot of newer faces in there. And I would say one of the folks that I connected to this year in Las Vegas, and I had connected online with him before, and I had heard on on your podcast as well, is Paul Lalonde. I really have enjoyed reading Paul's blog and following his tweets and hearing his story. I really enjoyed the episode, Paul's episode on HR Social Hour. He's just someone who has a lot of heart. I've really just enjoyed hearing his perspective on things. I think he brings a quiet confidence to what he says, and he just brings a perspective that you don't see a lot out there. So I really enjoyed reading Paul's stuff and connecting with Paul.
Totally agree with that, for sure. So, Mike, if you could go back to the start of your career, what's one piece of advice you'd give yourself based on what you know now?
I think obviously I could have gone back and told myself, like, dude, major in HR and just get on with your life. And but I feel like if I did that, I don't know if I would have ended up where I'm at today. Everything happens for a reason in life, and I still enjoy foreign languages, even though I didn't end up completing my degrees in them, and in history too, and in teaching too. I guess it would be that. I think if I were to think of myself as an early HR professional and compared to where I am today, I'd say speak up more. Don't what's right in these situations, and don't be afraid of who else is in the room. Let them hear what you have to say. That's why they're paying you to do what you do. As a person, I'm kind of a helper type person. I enjoy building good relationships. I don't always like to rock the boat. Developed that over the years in terms of being more confident and assertive when there's power players in the room, and making sure that they're walking away with a good understanding of what my perspective is.
Mike, we've talked a bit about teaching and working with young practitioners and up and coming professionals, and a bit too in terms of your volunteering with Sherm. What's one way you really enjoy giving back to the HR community, or maybe a particular memory you may have of a volunteer, something you've done?
I guess I'd rather talk about people who I've had the great fortune of working with over the years, younger professionals who are trying to get their start in the HR field. At my last company, MedTouch, I was really privileged to work with two young budding professionals who were just getting started in HR, but were so passionate about the field and what they do, and being able to be a part of their journey and give them advice and ask them challenging questions so that they can kind of think more critically about how they want to approach a certain situation and that kind of stuff. I really enjoy the opportunity to work with folks who love this field and want to make a difference, because I think, I guess what draws me to HR is I feel like HR is at the intersection of being able to make a difference for people and for a business. And you can see the results of your work impact positively the business. And also, when you see that person you hired get promoted or take on a new challenge, it's so gratifying. And so when you get to work with people in your own team and you get to be a part of their career growth and their career development and their promotions, nothing feels better than that.
What is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, which I should have known that Tiffany and I were going to be cosmically connected on this when we met in 2013, is The Godfather. And I am Mike Spinale. I'm Italian American. It's kind of our religion that we have to like The Godfather. But really, I have watched it a million times. I have spent several days of my life watching the trilogy from start to finish. It is just a wonderful masterpiece of a movie.
How about your favorite musician or band?
So that's harder. I mean, my musical tastes are somewhat eclectic. I like, my favorite type of music is going to be 90s hip hop and rap and R&B. I like dance music. I like Spanish music, salsa, bachata, merengue, dance hall from Jamaica. I love, that's my core music that you'll find on my Spotify if you followed me there. But I would say if I had to pick one band, my favorite band of all time is the Fugees. Wyclef, Lauren, and Praz.
How about a favorite TV show?
So The Office, and I'm so jealous that you guys got to meet Toby Flenderson out at EMBARC. You guys suck for that. I love that show. I am depressed that they're going to be taking it off Netflix in January. I have watched it from start to finish a bazillion times. And, I guess it's the HR guy in me, just, the workplace. There are real people like all of those folks that I work with every day, and so do you guys. And I think that's just why it hits home so much. I'm really excited that they announced that Jenna Fisher and Angela Martin are going to be doing a podcast. Not sure if you guys heard that, but they're going to be. I think they already launched it. They're basically going to be giving some behind the scenes, for each episode. So I'm excited to download that.
That show is Office Ladies. It is out. I listened to it. It came out last Thursday, I think.
What did you think?
I'm going to give it a few episodes.
Okay.
It's tough. Right. A pilot is hard. I mean, those ladies have great chemistry because they're friends. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of how they fit, how they get the groove going, because, they're probably going to try different bits or talk about different things. There's a lot of great information. It's very entertaining. It seemed a little long for me, but that was maybe just me. Maybe I was just in a bad spot when I was listening. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'll give it a few episodes just for them to get a feel going, because a pilot is hard. A premiere episode, who knows if how many they've recorded. Meeting Paul Lieberstein was really, really cool. And he definitely, I think probably the most surprising thing we got, Mike, was that he said that NBC used footage of him as Toby when they did HR presentations to the Office cast. So you want to talk about meta? That was just bizarre. That was absolutely bizarre.
That's the best thing I've ever heard. That is awesome.
We collectively in that room laughed a lot. I think it was really very, very, some really enlightening stuff. Now, so if you're not watching The Godfather, if you're not listening to the Fugees, or not watching The Office come the end of the year on Netflix, what else do you like to do outside of work?
Well, I do have all the DVDs of the Office, so I am all set. It just takes a little extra work. My favorite thing in the world to do is to travel. I love to travel. That is, whether it's taking a ferry over to Cape Cod, or driving up to the White Mountains of New Hampshire, or heading over to Spain, where my husband's from, and spending the holidays there. I just love to travel. I love to explore new cities. Like you, John, when I go somewhere, I like to try the local beer, the local specialty dish, all that kind of stuff. And I have unlimited PTO at AppNeta, and I'm very glad for that, because it gives me the opportunity to spend some time away from home and seeing the world a little bit.
I love seeing all of your social media shares of your travels, especially when you head overseas. It's fun to live vicariously through you.
God, I hope I'm not one of those people, but I mostly share them for me, because when those memories pop up, it's so great to relive those moments, and people are, I check into the restaurant because I want to remember the place and be able to find it again and remember the name, and in case I ever go back, right, I'll be able to search my Facebook for that. But I love to share my pictures. There's always I probably share like 1/10 of them.
And that's fine. There's a few people that I follow on Facebook that is just like, that's the exact same picture 5 times. You don't need to share every single one.
Yeah.
You can be selective.
If you printed them out, you can make a flip book,
right? Finally, Mike, if you weren't in HR, since you tried many, many different professions when you started college, what do you think you'd be doing if you hadn't ended up in HR?
Well, being a teacher sounds like the obvious answer, and it probably is. I mean, I always thought I wanted to be a teacher my whole life as a kid. I used to play school with my sister, and I used my Doubleday Children's Atlas to teach geography. And my sister hates me to this day for all of that, by the way, and blames her performance in real school on me. Another thing I always wanted to be was a diplomat, and I really love foreign cultures. foreign to the United States. I love languages and trying to pick up words here and there. And I speak Spanish and some French, and I just always love that. And so the thought of being an ambassador to some cool country and being able to represent the United States that way would be really, really cool.
Mike, I think it's fair to say you're the first person to bring up ambassador, which is great. I think we really had some teachers, but I think ambassador is a first.
Yes.
It was probably junior high school. I sent a letter to President Bush, the first President Bush, and told him I wanted to be an ambassador and asked him for, how could that happen for me? And he only responded with a picture of him and Barbara. So I was let down. And that's when I became a Democrat.
Everybody's story is different. That's all we can say.
I love it.
Mike, I have to tell you, it's been an absolute joy, just spending some time together. For someone that said they were nervous to do it, I didn't get it. I don't see it. You did great, and really appreciate you being with us. I know there are probably some of the listeners out there that aren't connected with you now, but they've heard you, want to get to know you better, connect. What's the best way for them to reach out there on social media?
First, thank you guys so much for asking me to be a part of this. I mean, I've never done anything like this before, and I don't know why anyone would even want to listen to this podcast, let alone follow me. But if you really want to, you can find me on Twitter at Mike Spinale and LinkedIn the same. Those are probably the two best ways to connect with me if you're that interested. Thank you guys so much. It was so great talking to you guys.
We're happy to have it. We'll have that in the show notes. Wendy, how about you? What's the best way for the listeners to find you out there?
Best way is always on my blog, mydailyjourney.com. Daily is D as in dog, AILEY. And of course, the fourth Sunday of each month, please join me on Twitter for the Social Hour Twitter chat, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. How about you, Jon?
I want to take a moment to once again thank CareerArc for sponsoring this month and this episode. Again, this coming Sunday, if you were listening to this prior to the 27th, that will be our monthly chat. We'll be with CareerArc, so join us then. As for me, hrsocialhourpodcast.podbean.com. Top left-hand side of the screen, 3 little lines, open them up. You'll see access to all my social accounts there. And while you're there, if there's an episode you haven't listened to, listen, download, rate, review, share. Anything you can do to help boost the signal, we always appreciate. Mike, again, appreciate you being with us. And so for the HR Social Hour Half-Hour Podcast, I'm Jon.
And I'm Wendy. And as always, be sure to connect,
give back, and network. Take care, everybody.
We'll see you soon.